Wonderful. Well, we're really looking forward to having a good look at the new advanced level for Just Right. So is there anything that's special about that advanced book that's a little different from the other books, or does it follow exactly the same methodology?
Well, it's sort of a bit of both in a sense. You'll notice just by looking at it that it comes from the same place, in the sense that it carries many of the features that the other levels carry. For example, in every unit you'll find reading and functional language and grammar sections and vocabulary. There's a review page at the end of every unit with extra activities for vocabulary and grammar and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But there are differences. The first difference is the obvious difference, which is level, sure. Which means that we can deal with higher level English, slightly more interesting topics, because you can talk about them more interestingly because the students have more interesting language. Mm-hmm. A huge difference is we have a new writer with us called Ken Wilson, who is a writer of enormous experience, and he brings his own special sense of humour, his own special interests to the book, and it's noticeable how refreshing his presence is in the book. Mm-hmm. We've got a section at the back of the book which we've never done before, which we call extra activities, which is specifically exam type material of kind of reading comprehension with fill-ins and multiple choice and extra little activities. Now, you may not find them methodologically hugely stimulating, but students find them very useful because it gives them practice in the kind of thing they want to do. Mm-hmm.
And is this advanced level also a gentle introduction to more kind of academic-based English?
Yes, I mean, we're talking about, what do students do? They've got an upper intermediate level of English. It means that they can communicate pretty well. Mm. It means their general knowledge of English is well, something that we'd all like to have in a foreign language. But what they need to then do is to transition from there mm-hmm. to a level where they can function academically or function in a more kind of a world of kind of international communication, which is less social necessarily, right. Although it still is social, right. But more kind of content rich.
Yes.
And that's what we've provided for. We think we've provided for. Mm-hmm. In our choice of text, what we ask them to do with it, the speaking tasks, but especially the writing tasks, and we give writing tips for each task to try and turn students into really good writers.
Okay. On a slightly different topic, you're also very interested in student motivation and engagement. Yeah. So what advice, if you can think of anything kind of short advice, for those teachers who are really seeking to increase their students' level of motivation and engagement?
It is difficult to give a short answer to that, but my gut feeling all the time is the more you involve the students, the more motivated they're likely to become. So if you can get them to suggest things to you, to offer things to you, if you can ask them what they want to do next, if you can ask them for their opinions, if you can give them choices which they can make, they're far more likely to be motivated than if everything that they're given is something you decide for them to do. And even when using course books, this can happen. You can say to them, do you want to do this or this? Which bit shall we do next? Now, that sounds very banal, but it sort of makes a point, which is if I say to you as a student, what do you want to do? There's a chance that when you do it, you'll do it with more enthusiasm, more commitment than if I'm telling you what you want to do all the time.
Yes. I would also say in the Just Right books, one of the good features is the level of personalization opportunities. So although it might be course book driven, there's lots of opportunities for students to have personal reflections to the text. And was that very much in your thinking in the design of the books?
Completely convinced that unless you actually relate to the text as a student, then what's the point? Unless I can get you to use the language that we've been playing with to say something which matters to you, then I don't think there's any point. I'm very big on the concept of agency, of getting students to take responsibility for their learning. And everything you do, I think, in teaching, and I hope our books reflect this, is a way of trying to offer them more and more and more and more, so they can then take the reins and sit in the driving seat and do the language themselves. Because so long as it's the language that I'm offering you as the teacher, it's not your language. And when it's not your language, then the motivation to be really good at it is not nearly as strong as if I say, it's your language, take it, use it, own it.
That's great. Well, thank you very much.
It's a real pleasure to talk to you, Tanya.
It's a real pleasure, Jeremy. All right. Hi, Ken.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for talking to us.
You're very welcome.
So we're very excited about the Just Right Advanced book that's coming out, or has come out. What would you say is particularly engaging or different or interesting about this book that you've co-written with Jeremy Harmer?
Well, I think the first thing for me is that I've joined an existing writing team and an existing book with a really, really nice format and a formula for how they've done it. And I think Jeremy has a terrific idea about how, given that your class is going to have different needs and different likes and dislikes, so Jeremy's books always tend to have vocabulary is always taught in many, many different ways and practiced in many, many different ways. So I think there's a very nice feel to the series that I joined just for the advanced level. So Anna and Carol and Jeremy having written the 3 or 4 levels already. So I came into a team that had a nice idea for a book. And I happened to have 1 or 2 nice ideas that were sitting around thinking I'd like to do something about these topics. And so when we sat around to discuss who would write what and what the content would be, I said, well, I'd like to do something about crime and punishment and something about dangerous animals and just the things that I've been sitting around thinking there's some nice material here that'd be quite engaging for the students. So I think I had some nice topics. I brought some nice topics to it. And then when I learned the just right formula for making the stuff engaging for all your students in the class, for the students who like lots of reading, the ones who need different kinds of stimulation, the ones who need to learn vocabulary in different ways, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's stuff that I will agree with anyway, but I think it was nice to sort of get a chance to write a book that, you know, that Jeremy putting his mouth where his heart is sort of thing, you know, he writes the way he believes in education, which is very nice.